Conversations with Svend. Real life conversations with real people based on authenticity and vulnerability and the sharing of insights and guidance in mindfulness and heartfulness. The podcast that gets everybody talking again. Conversations with Svend. Episode 1. Honoring the human need of safety and connection, the importance of qualifying compatibility of core values for successful relating, guidance with the Queen of Going Slow, dating and relationship expert, Shelley J Whitehead, author of Healing Your Heartbreak, 28 Days to Transformation. Welcome. This podcast has a dual intention. It's for me to reintroduce myself. I've kind of added some certifications to my name. I've been diagnosed with both autism and adult ADHD, and I'm also a highly sensitive, and I live with quite significant sensory differences. And then I would like to invite people from the network that I have, and I would like to share wisdom, applied knowledge, specifically around areas which I'm interested in, like nervous system regulation. And today it's embodied dating and relating. I am very, very, very delighted to introduce to our audience here my dear friend, the highly esteemed and internationally acclaimed dating and relationship coach. She is the author of Healing Your Heartbreak, 28 Days for Transformation. My wonderful friend, Shelley J Whitehead, who I would say is a leader in the field of teaching a grounded, evidence-based, embodied methodology of relating.
Oh, what a lovely introduction, Svend Emil. It's so nice to be with you.
Welcome, Shelley. Welcome. Did I leave anything out? What would you add?
Wow, I would probably just put it in another way. That's, the out there information, as in I love helping individuals really discover themselves in relationship, especially with another, how to live happier, more fulfilled lives in even better connection. Because that can be so difficult. When we see those signs, it's complicated. So many relationships are complicated. You and I, over the years, have had fabulous deep dives into discussions about relationships, about dating. I also love how you introduced yourself, with your diagnoses. And there's so many people who walked into my practice. One in particular, one day, he came and he said to me, his heart was broken. His girlfriend had ended the relationship. And he said to me, and I need to tell you, I'm ADHD and I am probably on the spectrum, he said to me, which I mean, all of that is, he said, and my therapist said I'm borderline personality disorder. Now, she said to me, calmly, just sit down, I'm with you. And whatever the diagnosis is, in this room, it's about behavioral change. So in order to feel better in our relationships, to connect with another, or whatever it might be, we need to change our behavior. And that's what I'm about, because we don't know what we don't know. And this is what I love to do with anyone I may meet in my practice, not in my personal life, is to dive deeper, to help them to understand, to come to a different awareness, because with awareness, we've got that key to make the changes.
Yeah, and I would say that's one of the things that you are exceptionally good at, is that reframing. So first, how I feel about myself, and then how I can implement those changes in the way I behave. Because if I feel better about myself, I will automatically be better, isn't it? Yeah. So that's an essential part of your work, is really getting to know who you are, right?
Mhm.
Do you mind sharing, because I find it fascinating myself, how we actually connected first? Shelley, would you indulge me a little bit as you
I'm going to dive in, and then anyone listening to this is going to go, she's a nutter. Oh, it's such a fascinating story. We have a mutual acquaintance, someone called Tom, who is a friend of mine. I met Tom on a business course many years ago. And I happened to, because, those days it was Facebook, be on Tom's Facebook. And on his Facebook, so too, it appeared that here is this a friend of his, and that's you. And lo and behold, I go to sleep, I have a dream, and you appear in my dream. Cannot even remember what the dream was about, but it was certainly about you. So I sent you a message to say, this is so random, and you might think it totally bizarre. We have a mutual friend, Tom, and I had a dream about you. And so too began our connection. I think at the time you were quite skeptical or hesitant. What is the word? This is how he,
Well,
wary of this crazy woman, relationship coach, reaching out and saying she's had a dream about you. And so began what I consider to be one of the most fabulous connections with someone who is so aware, incredibly bright, with a great sense of humor. I always have fun when we chat. And it's lovely to dive deep with you into this world of relationships and connection.
Well, I find it is it's so fascinating that you would act on that, because a lot of people might, oh, that was a bit of a strange dream, and but you actually followed your intuition, and I remember it was about guidance. You were saying I was showing something and you couldn't remember when you woke up, but in the dream it made sense. And I think this is the principle of this podcast a lot, many years later, right? But it is guidance. It is like how to act and how to succeed. And Tom was a wonderful connection from Coed Hill Arts Retreat Center, and I did family constellation seminars there with kind of tantric body work and really deep immersions, and I made so many good friends. And yeah, at that time I was kind of going through heartbreak, so it was welcome. I was just wondering. I think I was quite cynical at that time, and but yeah, I've learned incredible amount from you, Shelley, and I'm very grateful. And how did you come to this work then? And what's your entrance, and what fascinates you mostly about the work you do?
Human relationships, as I said initially, can be so complicated. The intricacies. My own early beginnings were very traumatic. My parents should not have been parents. I'm glad they were, because I'm here because of that. But they were traumatized individuals themselves and really didn't have the capacity to attend to the needs of their children. There were three of us. And in a way, I almost became a parent to my parents. I missed out on that childhood. And lo and behold, I got married for the first time at 19. And I entered into a world of, really serious relationship. My husband was 10 years older than me. I had my first baby at 21, barely out of school. I then have a baby. And then I have two more. And we have this amazing lifestyle. We move overseas to Germany. We move back to South Africa, because that's where I'm from, as the accent probably tells some of the listeners. And then my husband was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And so began this journey into death and dying. And probably, something that most people don't know is year 13 of our marriage. It was almost the end. But we clawed our way through that. And I'm very glad we didn't end it, because I learned so much about compassionate love. And, I was there when my husband took his last breath. And I was very fortunate, and still am, that I have a wonderful girlfriend who's a clinical psychologist who, as we were going through those dying years, said, your children need to see a therapist. And so began this world of therapy for my children. I went to drop them off and discovered that my therapist was waiting for me. What an angel of a therapist she was. She was also what we know to be an imago therapist. It's a methodology developed by Dr. Harville Hendricks of connecting and communicating with your partner or any close individual. So not only were they grief therapists, they were imago therapists. And I started to learn a lot about relationships and deal with grief. Dr. Harville Hendricks visited Johannesburg in the year 2004. I got to meet him at a seminar that he ran literally one night before my husband passed away. And some years later, I married again. And 6 months into the marriage, it felt like I was pushing water uphill. By then, I'd moved over to London and then began this intense work with an imago therapist, with other therapists, with myself, reading everything I could possibly read about relationships. I then started training to work with couples, with a woman called Heidi Schleifer, who took imago work around the world to train therapists and then coaches and counselors. I did this for 6 years because it's such an awesome responsibility to step into the world of working with couples. And although most of my work in my practice is with individuals and groups, I do work with a couple of couples because the methodology, which is now called the encounter-centered process, encounter-centered couples coaching, dives even deeper than imago, very energetic, and really does help and facilitate connection. So I've been bereaved. Let's get back to marriage number 2. It ended up with husband X leaving after 7 years. I've been bereaved, I've been dumped, I've been divorced. I know how hard relationships can be, and I know how to find the right relationship, not perfect, because you know that story of the perfect man and the perfect woman, they are still searching for one another. So we don't get perfect, but we can definitely get exactly the opposite of what we're looking for if we're not careful. And I delved and dived into the world of dating after my divorce, and then spent 8 years qualifying my now husband. So they say 3rd time lucky, 3rd time well chosen, well qualified. And I'm in the best relationship of my life. And in the 18 years of doing this work, my clients do find the right relationship. That's a little bit of history of, my life.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelley. Um, there's such a wonderful array of resources available from you, Shelley. You make yourself very available. What's the best way for people to learn from you, and how do they find you?
I get a lot of referrals via, people I do work with. But if anyone does want to get in contact with me, or if they want some free information and resources out there, subscribe to the newsletter on my website. You can contact me via contact form on the website. I'm on all forms of social media, from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok to, am I missing anything? The main channels. So there are a lot of things that I do speak about. I have my book To Help Heal Heartbreak. Soon to be released is my Relationship Ready Reset program for individuals who are single, individuals who are in a relationship. 28 skills that we need when it comes to love. And that book will be released as soon as I have met with the publisher who will be publishing it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we'll definitely put a link for your book so people can, and I've been listening to it on Audible as well. I've always been impressed, Shelley, of how vulnerable you are when you're telling your own story, and how you kind of share both the lows and the highs, and I get that you really, from learning. So I love how you because a lot of people might have this, like, heartache is such a painful thing, so we never ever want to engage in relationship again. We'll create some kind of fortress around yourself, but you teach people how to again open your heart and see the learning, and it is interesting sometimes, like, going through it. It's so painful, and I also, like you say, is there's no kind of get over it, and it's, it's a grieving process, but then one day the sun shines again, and there's so many great aspects of your life. I like the way you have this methodology. So you have this space, you have the structure, you have the support, and then you also talk about the sunshine, kind of. But something that might be helpful for people in general is, like, what are those mistakes that people make, and how can people learn from the mistakes they, what works and what really doesn't?
It's such a huge question. I met a girlfriend I haven't seen since 2013 this morning, and we were sitting chatting over our cups of tea about exactly the same thing, how people can make terrible mistakes based on what they have learned back there from their families of origin or their caregivers. And most of the time, our caregivers were also fumbling around in the dark when it came to being able to connect and communicate, and made different choices for different reasons. Today, we choose a partner for love. In the past, a partner was chosen for possibly financial reasons or societal, within the societal constraints of why they got married, to increase fortunes and inheritances and that kind of thing. And I love the work of Esther Perel, her first book, Mating in Captivity. But, as she's also gone on to speak, and these days we want our partner to be our everything. We get together with someone initially, that first date, be it an introduction, an online situation where we meet someone, or randomly, we might have been in the same hiking club or whatever it might be. And our expectation is that this person is there to meet all of our needs. Mistake number one. There's no one on this planet who's ever going to meet all of your needs. And this is why we need a life aside from our relationship. A relationship is not our life. There are a whole bunch of other life areas, and ones that I focus on in my practice, that make us who we are. Our physical and emotional health. Of course, then I speak about our intimate relationship with a partner, or our social connections and family, our career, our finances, what we do for ourselves in terms of personal development, spiritually, if that comes into the equation, but it's really that energy that we put into our life and into the world and into creating more of what we want and how we want to feel emotionally, the states of being and feelings that are very important to us. So these things may be important to us, but if we've been shut down in childhood, if we haven't been heard or seen, asking for what we want and need, having clearly defined boundaries and being able to communicate this isn't easy. This is something we are oblivious to. In fact, that was my family. Children were seen and not heard. Our feelings weren't important. And yeah, we were told what to do and we had to jump. As my father said, if I say jump, you ask me how high. I'm unfortunate. And in my life, it's been different. Being a mum, I didn't want my children to have the kind of childhood I had. So lack of boundaries, an inability to ask for what we want and need, or a fear. And here's the one big thing. We work from fear or we work from love. And that love should always be self-love. If we cannot take care of ourselves and look after our needs, use that word, there's autonomy. That's one of the skills, by the way, in my 28 skills for love. We're then going to kind of be approaching a relationship with a deficit. I need you to meet my needs, instead of, what do I have to contribute to this relationship? And then the other thing is reciprocity, reciprocal, a relationship of interdependence. It's like that figure 8 on its side. I rely on you for this and you rely on me for that, simple things in a household, one unpacks the dishwasher, the one normally puts the stuff in. That's the thing that causes arguments, by the way, but it's the reciprocity. And I need to have autonomy in my own life, because if I hate my life and it's not really working very well, I'm looking to be rescued from it. It's an unhealthy dynamic. But we learn this back there. And then we go into relationships and we need to unlearn the stuff from back there and relearn new methods, new ways of connecting. Conflict in relationships is normal. I'm not talking about unhealthy, terrible conflict all the time. Conflict is normal. What we didn't learn back there is how to repair the conflict and how to reconnect. So instead, what we do, we go into a story about them, how they always never, and the last time they did that, and we're so tired of the same thing happening again and again, and it's all this negativity. And of course, whatever we focus on increases. So now we're caught up in the story, how terrible they are. And it becomes even more destructive to wanting to reconnect. And it's lovely to teach individuals how to do this differently.
Yeah, and tell me about the chemistry part. Like, so you got these wonderful. I love your methodology because it's very kind of relatable for me. I can, it sounds true. That's kind of good enough for me. I do love evidence-based and it's LinkedIn, etc. But so we got the chemistry, compatibility, connection, and communication formula that you've lined out, and then but what is it with the chemistry that
can be dangerous? Let me explain. When I have chemistry with the person that you are wanting to date, for this to continue, otherwise you're with someone who's like your brother or your sister, or, that's not what we want. However, sometimes the chemistry is so strong, we just run away with the future. We look at this person and we go, this is my person. I don't want to use the word soulmate. I really don't like that word soulmate. This is my person. They on the same page. They really get me. I had somebody once say to me, I can really trust him. This is within 2 weeks of knowing him. I said, tell me more. What makes you really feel you can trust him? He really gets me. This was what she felt about him. It was not based on concrete evidence. 3 months later, it unraveled monumentally. There was great chemistry. When there's great chemistry, we do not ask the right questions. We are so enmeshed so quickly, use the word quickly, which is what we don't want to do, because compatibility is far more important than chemistry. Compatibility equals values. When you share the same highest values and you're able to implement how to connect, how to repair connection, how to deal with conflict, how to emotionally regulate, you've got a relationship that's going to go the distance. If you don't have the same values, and you'll know, I use this perfect example of wheatgrass and cocaine. I mean, if you're a cocaine person, no judgment here whatsoever, not my thing, and your partner's a wheatgrass person. For anyone who doesn't know what wheatgrass is, it's that healthy substance that you drink. You know, one shot is like 10 heads of broccoli in terms of nutrition. Cocaine and wheatgrass, you have different values. It's not going to work. So that's compatibility. And then we have connection. Connection for me means I feel safe with you. I trust you. We work together as a team and we have one another's backs. Loyalty, integrity, support. Lastly, it's about communication. And you have couples who speak different languages who get together. I mean, obviously they have a way to communicate because there is perhaps a common language. I'm not talking about chemistry, it's just a language they speak. So when we work on our communication, we have a good relationship. We want all 4 C's. But unfortunately, with intense chemistry, and I've seen this happen many times over the 18 years, where someone thinks, this is it. And that's why I recommend, and I am the queen of go slow. We must go slowly in our relationships. We must qualify the person that we are dating. People can be on their best behavior for only a limited period of time. It doesn't last longer than 3 months because stuff starts to pop up. And if it's not their best, sometimes it's their shadow. We all have, you know, the light and the dark within us, but we don't want to be dating downright dark, where there are addictions, there are behaviors that we're not comfortable with. I don't know anybody who wants to be with someone who's not honest, but, you know, it depends. The white lie and the extreme dishonesty. We want to be qualifying. Who is this person? How do I feel when I'm with you? And if 80% of the time I'm anxious, and it's not just my anxious attachment style, I'm anxious because maybe you're just pulling away and I can't connect, something's wrong. So trying to pop into the dating formula that I prescribe. Months 1 to 3, it's about qualifying values. So do we want the same things in our life? Do we approach things in a similar way? You know, I value financial stability and being responsible. Are you also financially responsible? Are you stable? Can you emotionally regulate? That's one of the key things to look out for when you're dating someone, the ability to emotionally regulate. Months 3 to 6, Again, you're going to be looking out for emotional regulation, because this is about qualifying behavior. How does somebody show up with their friends, family, work colleagues? How do they approach challenges and obstacles in their life? Are they kind? For me, kind is everything. I've never met a kind person who's not generous. Months 6 to 12, you're looking at commitment and investment. How committed are they to this connection with you, the dating process? Investment. By this time, you're spending a lot more time together, more money together. You're also possibly, and should be, planning next summer's holiday. You should have met one another's friends and hopefully family. This is something that you're looking for, legs that goes into the future. And I always recommend pulling somebody into a social connection quite quickly if we're planning to date them longer, because you want to see how they are socially. You can tell a lot about a person, about how they interact with others.
Yes, yes. And I was thinking as you're speaking, can you explain to our viewers and audience what limerence is, Shelley? When you limerence, that when you get so infatuated with somebody that you overlook every red flag, even if there's and why is it that you recommend going slow, and what's the difference there between women and men? And
Okay, so let me talk about limerence. Getting so infatuated with someone, you just don't see further than your nose. Now I'm going to speak to women specifically. I had someone come to me many years ago. She was 38 and she just couldn't crack it when it came to dating. 1, 2, maybe 3 dates, and they disappeared. So I had a hunch as to what was happening. She is the most beautiful person physically, and the essence of her is amazing. So she shouldn't have a problem with dating. How quickly was she becoming intimate in that relationship with them? And I've had a number of clients challenge me on this. And here's the big thing, and it's been scientifically proven. Neuroscience also proves this. Men have higher testosterone. It overrides oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. So with sexual connection, more hugging, more kissing, we release oxytocin. We bond. Women will bond more quickly. That testosterone can cancel out oxytocin. So men do not bond through sexual connection in the early days. Generally, that is how it is. I'm sure there are individual cases that are different. Statistically, it's not so. Because it's about the evolution of the species. The more testosterone, the more women he can impregnate, the more we survive as a species. That's how it is. If you want a good relationship, and there is that lovely chemistry, and the conversation's great, you say, I like to go slowly, because it will exclude anyone who isn't serious about discovering whether they want to be in the relationship with you. And I mean, there's more to that sentence. I really like to go slowly, because he might say, you want to come back to my place, I'll come back to yours. You never want to make anybody wrong for suggesting that. And you go, or you say, as tempted as I am, I really like to go slowly, because I'm looking for something that has legs to go into the future with someone who shares my highest values. And you can go, how do you handle it? And he'll either go, no, I'm on a different page to you, or we can go as slowly as you like. Don't give in then because he said that. Take your time. And every single woman who's been battling in the past to connect and find her partner because she was slipping into that space of quick and easy, sexual connection. Every woman who was going through that in the past eventually did go on to find her amazing partner. And I know this because we get invited to many weddings. Even that 38-year-old is so happily married. She's living in another country now. And yeah, it works. So the foundation is in science. The differences are evident. And if you want a great relationship, go slowly. All we have to do is go and watch these programs like the Tinder Swindler. It's unusual that we should have somebody who's so highly manipulative with evil intent. It's not normal. But not everyone is our desirable partner with the same values. It takes time to discover that and to find out who they really are.
Yeah. It's quite an addictive cocktail, isn't it? That there's pheromones, there's the oxytocin, there's dopamine, it is understandable, and I've been there myself, isn't it, where the second phase is building trust. But if there is that intense cocktail of it's hard to extract oneself and go but always that when there is that kind of also with the narcissism and the kind of love bombing, there is that the red flags. When somebody wants things to go really fast, there's usually an agenda as well, isn't there?
Yes and no.
Right.
That word narcissist is thrown around so much.
Too much, yeah.
And, anytime anyone is displeased with this person they were dating or the ex, he's a narcissist. And sometimes it comes up in the room and it's got, when I've been able to dive deeper and it's like, no. Might be an unpleasant person, but they're not a narcissist.
Yes.
The stuff that happened might have been unpleasant because there are about 36 traits to a narcissist and of varying degrees. And Dr. Ramani on YouTube is definitely that go-to person to learn more about narcissism. She wrote a book, Should I Stay or Should I Go? It's really an amazing expert if anybody wants to go and dive deeper and learn more about narcissism. Sometimes people have an intention where they are ready for a relationship and they are completely present. They like what they see. They are happy to move ahead. They are respectful. And sometimes one can, if one has been burnt, once bitten, twice shy. What is that saying? A man once bitten by a snake is forever more afraid of a piece of rope. So if one has had an experience with someone who has love bombed and not been the greatest partner, they could be a little wary of a situation. Give it some time. I want to talk about not feeling chemistry on that first date. But the conversation's nice. They're a nice person. Don't really like the word nice, but it goes well. Keep going. Have that second, third, fourth date. Magic often happens when you least expect it with this nice person. More so for women. A lot of women will say to me, nice guy, I didn't feel anything. The best relationship of my life, I nearly threw away because I also didn't feel that instant chemistry. But I did take my own advice. Third time meeting him, and something just shifted it. And I married him. So third time. So don't discredit someone when dating if you don't feel. that instant chemistry. It can come further on down the line. I remember a girlfriend calling me. She'd been dating him for 6 months. There was enough chemistry, but she was comparing it to a previous relationship, which was a 20 out of 10 chemistry. And she said, when she phoned me, 6 months in, I'm falling in love with him. And she's married and they have 2 little boys, and it's a great relationship.
It shows the compatibility is that, and I love that you explained about core values. We could go deeper into that, obviously, qualifying. But tell me, because you are so good at making it very evident. So what is that process then for qualifying and then also deeming, is somebody trustworthy? What are those things that you are guiding people to look out for, and how can we, would you please share some more about that process?
For me, it's about behavior. Somebody can say something to you, promise you the world. I love you. I want to grow old with you. It's not so much about what they say, it's about what they do. And that builds trust, consistency, and they communicate it and they take action. I remember dating someone who said to me these magical words, I will do anything to make a relationship work, only to discover exactly the opposite. So it's really about that consistency, continuity that builds the trust. And then we decide to trust someone unless they give us reason not to trust. And remember, we also come from our own perception. Perspective is different. Perception, we kind of caught up here. Don't jump to conclusions. If there's something you don't understand or it feels incongruent, clarify. Ask questions. Don't just assume. One of the biggest mistakes we make, they did that and therefore it must mean this. Let us get some clarity around it.
Mm-hmm. You talk about consideration and congruency and consistency. Those, I have shared so much of what you are telling me with my friends, and a lot of people are asking me about the congruency. And could you go deeper into that? Like, what is congruency? And it's a little bit like being the detective, isn't it? Kind of.
It's really easy, you know. Do you show congruency? It's about what you say, what you want, how you live, how you're showing up in the world. You say one thing. What is your behavior? Is it congruent with what you're saying? Is it congruent with what you're telling me? Fitness is your thing, not you, Svend Emil. This person, they're telling me fitness is their thing. Are they exercising? Is a healthy lifestyle part of what they do? There's the congruency in it. Can I believe you? Show me what you say.
Yeah. And what's the kind of importance of accepting the responsibility of the state that I'm in? And can you also explain more guidance around communication? What works in your experience? You have 18 years of guiding people towards relating. What works and what definitely absolutely does not work?
Let's start with what doesn't work, because then it gives us the opposite of what does work. The communication, sorry, what was the other thing?
First, I was saying, what's the importance of accepting responsibility for one's own state and what to avoid in that, and then, yeah, guiding around communication,
Okay.
what works and what absolutely doesn't.
Okay. So let's go first with responsibility. To the degree that we take responsibility determines our success, because the opposite is not taking responsibility and blaming someone else. And I look back into probably some of my most difficult relationships. There are two people in that. I was there, my partner was there. And we co-created that dynamic. I take responsibility for my part. Part I was in back then, I was working from fear, not self-love. Self-love would never have tolerated certain behaviors. Fear didn't want to upset the apple cart. Fear didn't want to ask for what she wanted and needed in case she was too much. What was my big fear was being rejected, abandoned. It's my old childhood story. So looking at why I tolerated something for so long, I was fearful of the consequences, whatever they were, instead of saying, no, this is not what love should look like. This is not how love should show up. I need to ask for what I want and need. We need two people working on themselves and the relationship. One person can't do it alone. One person can help change a dynamic, but if the other person isn't willing to do their part, it can only go so far. So there is something about taking responsibility for the part we co-create, how we show up in that dynamic, what we're prepared to do about it, and then the communication can go so wrong if we are critical and defensive, if we withdraw emotionally or shut down, or the barriers go up or down, we can't connect. And if we become contemptuous. So all four of these elements cause a lot of trouble in relationships. The opposite of that is using our listening skills, approaching with the eyes of curiosity, willing to hear difference without making it dangerous because it's different. But before we do that, we create a time to speak. If there is an issue where we've got to dive deeper, we want to create a safe space to hear what this one has to say, to validate and empathize with them, not disagree with them. I can't agree with you because your opinion is different to mine. Even if, the story started on a Wednesday and they're saying it happened on a Thursday, we don't want to make it about wrong. It's about where can we connect. Underneath every conflict is a need, an unmet need or a deep longing. And if we keep criticism, defensiveness, that emotional cold shoulder, that stonewalling that Dr. John Gottman speaks about, and contempt out of the space, and we're able to really hear one another without making their needs wrong, we can really communicate. And that's a methodology I use with my couples, with mother-daughter, father-daughter, siblings, spouses, partners, teaching them that methodology and going slowly. Because if we're going to rush the process, the magic gets lost.
Yeah. There's so much there. I remember one of the first kind of personal development seminars I participated in. The gentleman was talking about this WIN formula, so WIN, what happens inside feelings and thoughts and needs and wants. And And I do remember some very kind of pivotal conversations I've had with you, Shelley, during my times. And I was training to be a massage therapist, and I had ADHD and all that, but it wasn't diagnosed. I did have some assistance, but it was very easy for me to kind of get into this headset of, this is bureaucracy, this and you were guiding me towards nonviolent communication. You were using your listening skills and your discernment and so how, if I'm saying, what, I feel really challenged and stressed right now, I really care for you and value our connection, but I need some time, is easier than to say you're always just harassing, is it, what kind of, what communication style do you can you give some guidance? Because sometimes I do think that it's just reframing, because speaking about one's own needs.
Those 3 words, you, always, never, let's keep that out of our communication, and let's go, I think, I feel, I need. Taking responsibility for what I think, I feel, I need. And, you and I were chatting the other day, we were using the dishwasher as the example. We have an issue with the dishwasher in our marriage. Ilan is an architect. He packs it architecturally. And if I happen to, put anything out of place or not perfectly aligned, he will sort it out. So he feels disrespected if someone runs the dishwasher half full. Of course, if fish has been on the plates, I may not run it, where it's completely full. And we've had arguments about this in the past. And when we stopped, it was like, what is it about the dishwasher? He said, it makes perfect sense to me to pack it this way because I unpack it. So all the knives are together, I scoop them up and I pop them in the drawer. But if the spoons are with the knives, it's not doable. So I said to him, so what I'm hearing you say, it makes perfect sense for you. And you can just scoop things up. It makes unpacking really easy. He said, yes. And then it was my chance. I said, well, if fish has been on the plates, I don't like that smell in the dishwasher. I'm not going to wait till the evening to run it. I find it offensive. I have an acute sense of smell. He doesn't. So I'm probably going to run it with a few other things. However, I do make sure everything is, aligned as possible, or as aligned as possible. It's important for me just to clear the dishwasher. And I don't like the surfaces cluttered, so I put it all in the dishwasher. And then he said, so you don't like those unpleasant smells and you like your surfaces clutter-free. Got it. And it wasn't about you always mess up my dishwasher and you never respect me when I ask for this and that isn't done. It's about how I feel. But the other person needs to be willing to hear what is important to the other and to go, I get it, it makes perfect sense to me because it's easy for you and you like things very orderly. About 60-something% of arguments do not get resolved in relationships. It's not really about the dishwasher. It's about respect. It's about my need for, also, we have the same need for order. In unpacking, order in the kitchen. It's seeing what's deeper, what lies beneath. Stop using the word you if you want to speak to your partner. It might be on Saturday when you said that negative thing, I felt really criticized. I felt like I was not enough. It's the only time you can use the word you, when you're describing what they said back then, when you said, when you did, when you didn't call, when you were late. I felt anxious, concerned, disrespected. I find it difficult to deal with when someone is not punctual, whatever it might be. Because when I was young, my father was very punctual, and we all, got a long talking to, a long lecture if we were not punctual. So punctuality is important in my life. And my thing is being criticized. I was always criticized as a child. I never felt like I was enough. So I'm really open to feedback. I'm quite allergic to criticism, and an argument may erupt because of that. Tell me what you want and need. Don't criticize me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you are a highly sensitive person, very clearly. You are actually, from my study of human design, you are a reflector, and it's a very rare personality type that you can completely validate any other viewpoint and completely. But what I felt in my, like people, when they've been with you, that's why you're such a good coach, Shelley, is because you can kind of mirror back so they see themselves completely. And you'll have Shelley, she knows me, like she's always like, but what I find and I really took it very to heart when you were talking about nonviolent communication. For me, it's like, that's like, I would rather know if I'm doing something that really feels, I would rather know, but what the way I need to know is like, when you do this, it makes me feel this, and what I would like, what I need and want is this. So that is so I'm inviting feedback, but you are this or you are that. I don't think anybody, and this is a problem, isn't it? Nobody really learns from that because they just the shield goes up, and then if it goes into, but you does this or you do that, then it's like we got, you were speaking about this importance when things do gets heated, etc. What is it that happens, and how can people kind of avoid making it worse, so to speak?
Okay, we are talking about a trigger situation. We could have this wonderful scene. Here we are at the water's edge, having a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and let's just use, the he says and she says. It could be he says and he says, but let's go back to he says, she says, he says, she says, trigger. He's been triggered by something. As he's triggered, he releases all these stress chemicals, hormones into his system. The cortisol, the adrenaline, all of that. As he does, so does she. As we release these chemicals into our bloodstream, we exit our rational brain and we go into fight, flight, freeze. So one energy in this couple could become bigger, and one could possibly become smaller, like a volcano, like a tortoise into the shell. Or you could have two volcanoes. Sometimes you have two tortoises together. They withdraw. Cold War ensues. For 20 minutes from the last word uttered, this cocktail of chemicals is in our bloodstream. We're here. We're not in our rational brain. It takes about 20 minutes for that to dissipate, for us to come back to here, unless we're still being triggered, trying to resolve it. A good 20 minutes. So we need to recognize we're in a trigger cortisol stress hormone situation. We need to calm. Some people want to exit. Not a good idea, because this one starts to feel abandoned. It may be that we need to go, if we're not sitting at the water's edge with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, say, should we just keep some calm for the next 20 minutes, maybe finish our drink and go for a walk, so we can come back to a rational state. We might feel perfectly rational. I know myself in that state. I am very staccato. I am certain. I am here. I'm more of the fight. My, husband is more of the flight. We don't exit conflict, but sometimes we just need a little break. I remember, I think it was just on Friday evening, Ilan said something. I said, I think I need to be alone for a little while. He went and watched his movie. I watched mine. And it wasn't something that really needed to be resolved. It was just a trigger. And I certainly didn't want to watch his movie. I watched my own. And we came back together and it was fine. Because when we want to resolve it in that 20-minute time frame, it's not going to be a rational conversation. When we do come back together, and if there's something to resolve, it's one person at a time. What did you think? What do you feel? What do you want and need? Okay, I hear you, but this is what you feel. I felt that was negative and critical. What I like is this lovely Friday evening. And what I want and need is some space. And then the other person can discuss about what they think, what they want and need, and what they feel.
Very important. Yeah, we have just touched the surface of what you are sharing, Shelley. So you are available for other people who want to invite you to share more of your wisdom and knowledge. I would like to invite you back on this podcast, as I'm just starting out at this podcast, but I feel this is such a deep and important area. As we're finishing, so for people like myself who are on the spectrum of neurodiversity, I mean, have these ADHD, and which is becoming very common because we live in such a culture that is fueled by attention deficit, isn't it? And and then we got the spectrum of autism. I don't even know what any of it means, but I have learned something about polyvagal theory and vagus nerve stimulation and nervous system regulation as the gift of all these things. What would be your guidance for people who are on those spectra, I suppose is the right, and how does it differ, and how can people communicate their needs? What would be your thoughts on that?
These are all skills that can be learned. It's like a new language. So wherever we are on whatever spectrum, with whatever diagnosis, it might be that we need to learn new skills of connection, of communication. It starts with ourselves, understanding what we want and need in our lives. That's why coaching is so amazing, because you can delve into and dive into these life areas: your health, relationship with a partner, career, finances, personal development, family and social, spiritual. I'm going to put that in there because it's very important for some people. And our emotional states of being. What do I want in these life areas? What does that look like? How does that translate into what I'm doing daily to achieve what I want more of in my life? How can I learn more about connection and communication with a partner? There is so much material out there. Starting with, my favorite books, Understanding Your Attachment Style, the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication. For couples, Jason Gaddis, Getting to Zero, is an amazing book. And I always recommend it for my couples. Learning about themselves and how to do this. So whatever it is, whatever we're facing, there's advice, there's help out there. We've just got to go directly to the source to find it.
Yeah. And you offer so much amazing guidance on your website, and we'll make sure to link the audience of this Verging podcast to all the resources that are available. And I'm very interested in also, and I know you are also, that whole neuroscience, how it's linked in our nervous system and our body. etc. So much we could go on forever and ever, and we will in the future. Our next guest I have spoken to, the wonderful Jem Ayers, who's a sex coach and orgasmic embodiment coach. She will be on speaking about her work. If you were to leave the viewers and listeners to this podcast with one thought that's very much on your mind in regards to dating and relating, what would it be, Shelley?
It's a skill. It can be learned. Really be open to learning more about yourself, understanding yourself, because when you understand yourself, it becomes clearer as to what you want and need in your life. And it's easier to identify it when you know that. If you're experiencing unpleasant connection and communication, reach out to people who can help you and go and find material that can help you. Most people can't sort this out on their own. We just kind of perpetuate a cycle that isn't working. And there's always something that can be done. And sometimes it does mean leaving our relationship and being brave and starting again.
Right.
I would really say these two things: be brave and be curious.
Yeah, and being brave and courageous is also very much this heart set that you're kind of communicating. And I would say you are expert at helping people to get unstuck. If they are stuck in these patterns, you can help. And that's where the reflector, you can help people see, like, because when we're just doing it on our own, it's like, why is this always happening to me? And we can have somebody outside, well, how could this and then you can see, actually, I am kind of creating that. And that's what you've helped me a lot of the times, by reflecting back what I was doing. And I can see, okay, it's my communication is probably not working. And I think we've got a few minutes. There's one point that I find particularly fascinating, and I think what you've explained, Shelley, in this process of qualifying people, is that there's a gentleman called Oren Klaff, and he's got this process of how to pitch deals in business, etc. And he's saying, never go in needy to a meeting, never go in signaling you're needy. Become the price, qualify. Why would I want to do business with you? And when that comes to dating, relating, if you can ask a question like, why would I want to date you? It shifts the balance, etc. But so I was getting a bit confused. That's my brand of neurodiversity, that I take everything literal. And you were saying neediness attracts rejection. Can you explain the difference between being needy and having needs and being able to assert needs clearly and confidently, what I would say is a very attractive kind of quality? Can you clarify that a little bit, please?
I'm going to use hunger as an example. I need to eat food. When I am, it does happen to me, very hungry, I become needy. My behavior is such that I could become hangry, angry, hungry. Neediness is needing to fill ourselves with something from out there because we feel we don't have it. I mean, food is a literal thing. We need to fill the body with good food so we are, satiated and we can cope again. When we have a needy behavior, it could be quite repulsive. It could be anxious, clingy, controlling, fearful. I'm afraid I'll be rejected. I'm not enough. Neediness. Whereas I have a need to be loved, to feel connected, to experience fun in a relationship. Those are needs. But anything in terms of becomes a negative behavior in relation to the other, checking somebody's phone, calling them too much, texting them too much, telling them what to do, how to do, when to do all the time is really an issue. We have everything we need within us. It's just that we often look to others. That autonomy is lacking. And without you, I'm nothing. And therefore, without you, I can't exist. This is how a baby is in the world. And as an adult, we need to be showing up differently.
Thank you for clarifying that distinction. I think it's very important because, and it's that part of having a whole life. Like relationship is one part of it, but there's other parts of life. And if you're just needy, it will eventually lead to like a rejection because it's just too much energy. This has been so wonderful, and I'm really, really excited about sharing this podcast with the viewers. And thank you very much for giving your valuable time. I'll make sure that as we progress, we will reveal what your next move are, and I'll share with the audience, because you've told about some of the exciting new books you're working at and the courses you are sharing on your whole online presence. So I will link so how people can find you on social media. You provide so much valuable information to people's lives, and you add a lot of sunshine. So thank you so much, Shelley. Thank you very much.
It's so
We,
with you.
we've just gone to the top of the iceberg, but there's just so much more. But got to start somewhere, isn't it?
Wonderful. We've chatted about so much that is so valuable. I look forward to seeing you again in 4 months' time, but I'm sure as friends we will connect in between. So Thank you to you and to your listeners.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Thank you. Please allow me to reintroduce myself. Conversations with Svend. Conversations that matter. A projector podcast. Coming soon to a screen near you. Conversations with Svend.